Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we return to the storm-tossed love story between single mom Ly Hoai Ca and Officer Hùng, a bond that seemed to have fought through every barrier, only to be shattered last night by a blow that left us all stunned. Hoai Ca, the fierce mother who has carried the world on her shoulders to protect her son and hold on to hope, was attacked by someone she never would have suspected. The strike was fast, cruel, and calculated, so precise she barely escaped with her life. Why? Jealousy? Money? Or a deeper secret that neither Hoai Ca nor Hùng ever saw coming? In that razor-thin space between life and death, flashes of her son, of the days Hùng waited beside her, of the promise to build a home together, all flared like lightning before darkness closed in. And then, Hoai Ca vanished. No signal. No clear witnesses. Only scattered traces, a thin smear of blood on gravel, drag marks by a clump of brush, and a small item Tony dropped. For Officer Hùng, each fragment is a fragile thread tying him to the woman he loves. Tonight's episode follows Hung's race against time and danger, sweeping the forest tracks, scrubbing grainy camera feeds, digging through Hoai Ca's past connections, and, most haunting of all, facing the possibility that the mastermind is someone inside their trusted circle. Every step toward the truth peels back another layer of secrets someone was desperate to bury. Can Hùng find where Hoai Ca is being held before her worsening injuries push her past the brink? Can their love survive this betrayal, or is this the fault line that will bring everything crashing down? Don't look away, not for a second. Hung's mother told everyone she was taking an extended trip to clear her head. It sounded harmless, just a woman needing time away. In truth, it was smoke. While she was supposedly out of town, the travel photos she posted were stitched landscapes, timestamps that didn't line up, geolocation metadata wiped clean. Behind a string of encrypted calls routed through burner SIMs, she was patiently weaving a plan: remove Ly Hoai Ca from her son's life, permanently, if that's what it took. She could not accept that Hùng had defied his family to stay with a single mother beneath their station. In time she convinced herself, or tried to, that Hoai Ca had bewitched him, turning him against his own blood. Rage pushed her past every line of decency. Through an old contact who'd once borrowed money from the family, she reached a crew of enforcers who collect debts and stage accidents in the outskirts. The deal was blunt: make that woman disappear and never trace it back to her. A deposit moved through cutouts. The balance would come when the job was done. Her one hard rule: no public killing, just make sure she goes missing somewhere no one will find her. The crew's leader, goes by Ven, suggested a service road up Keda Mountain: steep grades, thin traffic, dry season weeds, and loose rock where a slip looks natural. Perfect cover. In the days leading up to the hit, they mapped Hoai Ca's routines: shift end times, her route home, the stop where she bought milk for Tony, which neighborhood cameras worked and which were blind. One man posed as an electrician checking meters and photographed the house layout. They prepped aerosol knockout sedative and cloth wraps. Wide webbing straps were packed so they could haul an unconscious body uphill without the telltale grooves of a dragged trail. On the chosen night, the neighborhood lights flickered out faulty wiring, so it would seem, after they shorted the alley breaker. Hoai Ca opened the door lit only by her phone's flashlight. A figure lunged, a drug-soaked cloth clamped over her nose and mouth. She fought hard, then her muscles gave way in seconds. They bound her wrists, blindfolded her, and stuffed her into a white panel truck running bogus plates. Tony, by chance, was sleeping at a neighbor's house. She'd asked them to watch him because of an overtime shift, so he saw nothing. As they barreled toward the outskirts, the crew rifled her things: a wallet, a few cheap pieces of jewelry. They yanked the SIM from her phone and tossed the handset off a bridge. From the passenger seat, speakerphone crackled alive, a woman's voice, steady and ice-cold: leave nothing behind. When you reach the drop, strip everything and make sure she doesn't come back. And do not touch Hùng. Hung's mother. Then the hissed addendum: she bewitched my son. Cut it off. They parked at the foot of the dirt climb toward Keda. No moon. The air smelled of scorched grass. Harnesses on, They really carried Hoai Ca's limp body up the slope. At a tilted rock shelf that falls toward a creek gully, they stripped anything that could ID her, even a folded slip with Tony's doctor's number. Then counted down 3 fingers, then a shove. Her body pitched onto a jagged, stone-strewn grade, bounced through thorn scrub, smashed a boulder with a sharp, dry crack, then tumbled again before snagging in a damp mat of leaves near the stream edge. Blood ran from her head. Her clothes were torn, breath thin, but not gone. The night water, icy where it splashed her face, may have slowed the crash in her core temperature, a razor-thin mercy between life and death. They withdrew under a settling mist. Half-conscious, she drifted in and out, Tony crying "Mama," Hung's awkward smile the night he confessed he loved her, flashes of light in a fractured dark. She tried to move. Nothing responded. Only the fingers of her left hand spasmed, clawing one muddy streak across a stone, a single scratch mark, the last evidence that she had fought. Hung brought Tony home, threw together a quick dinner, and spent the evening rocking the boy with one arm while staring at his phone with the other. End of shift had come and gone. Ly Hoai Ca still wasn't back. Messages sat unread. Calls bounced to subscriber unreachable or rang long, then cut. At first, he talked himself down. She could be stuck at work, out of signal, but when the clock slid past her usual check-in with no word, an icy thread crawled up his spine. She never disappeared without texting, especially when Tony was with him. Something was wrong. Just as Hung stepped onto the porch for better reception, Du appeared at the head of the lane. He'd been trying to rekindle things with Hoai Ca lately. When market vendors mentioned she hadn't shown that afternoon, he doubled back along the dirt track toward her house. Near the gate his boot clipped a familiar cloth sun hat, flipped brim down in the weeds beside the ditch. The chin strap snapped, mud smeared, a few hairs stuck in the fabric. A few steps farther lay her woven pack basket, the shoulder strap stretched like it had been yanked. Du's stomach dropped. He grabbed both and ran straight into the yard, where he met Hung. No time for niceties. Du held out the hat and basket. Found these out front. Hung froze a beat, then snapped into work mode. He set Tony in a chair, pulled on gloves, bagged the hat and basket in clean plastic to preserve trace. A long disturbed skid in the dirt ran from the lane toward brush at the wall. The ground showed a compressed patch. Someone had waited there or something heavy had pressed down. That section of street lamp was dimmer than normal. Neighbors said the power had flickered earlier in the evening. Data points began to link. By procedure, a missing adult file is hard to open before 24 hours, unless high risk. But this wasn't a careless adult. Hoai Ca is punctual. Her child was temporarily placed elsewhere. Personal items lay dropped, and the block had an electrical anomaly. Hung also knew filing too fast could backfire, internal questions about conflict of interest because he's involved with her. File too late, and he might lose her. He chose an off-book internal alert, capture perishable evidence, sweep for witnesses, keep it quiet so whoever did this wouldn't cover tracks. Tony wouldn't stop crying for his mother, tears streaking his face. To free his hands, Hung called a trusted family friend, Aunt Sao, to take the boy overnight. Before handing him off, Hung snapped a photo of Tony's little hand, dirt packed under the nails, a different soil tint. Playground grime? Or had Tony been with his mother somewhere else that afternoon? Du cut in. He was at school. I picked him up. Didn't go anywhere. Good soil likely from the yard. The timeline tightened. 2 men who'd been rivals now found themselves a team. Hung never liked Du circling back into Hoai Ca's life. Du figured Hung's police work would always pull him away from caring properly for mother and child. Tonight worry erased all that. They split tasks. Du would canvass Hoai Ca's regular stops, her garden plot behind the hill, the produce buyer, the 2 market stalls she consigns to, and the commune clinic in case she'd collapsed and been taken in. Hung would hold the house scene, photograph, bag, and log, ask neighbors about the outage window, pull feeds from community CCTV, and, quietly, without entering a formal case record yet, query the call detail log from her phone through his department system. Night deepened. Du checked back. No one had seen her after clockout. The stall said she'd closed early the day before. The garden still had an unharvested bed. She hadn't come by. The clinic had no matching female intake. Every no tightened the knot in their chests. Inside the house, Hung found more. The work shoes she wears to shifts still by the door. The back door key resting in its tin. Yesterday's cash bundle uncounted. Charger cord plugged in but phone missing. She normally carries it. Front door unforced. A fresh trash bag tied off by the stove, proof she made it home before vanishing. The window of danger shrank to mere minutes between her arrival and disappearance. Tony, now at Aunt Sal's, whimpered for his mother even in sleep. Back at the house, Hung and Deuce spread a map across the porch table, marking each site checked. Dawn bled gray across the road. In sealed evidence bags, Hoai Ca's hat and basket sat between them, mute alarms urging them to move faster. After more than 24 hours of searching in every direction with no word, both Hung and Du knew this was no longer a case of she probably went somewhere and forgot to tell us. At first light, they drove straight to the district police station. Hung, an officer himself, filed the report by the book, voice raw from a night without sleep. Du added what he'd held back. The night before, he'd glimpsed a white box truck paused briefly in front of Ly Hoai Ca's gate. Its headlights flashed twice, as if signaling, then the vehicle rolled off just as the neighborhood's power flickered out. He couldn't catch the plate. The angle was bad and the street dark, and he never saw the faces in the cab. But he remembered a peeled, weathered decal on the cargo door, same color scheme as a local travel service. The detail hit Hung like a current. His mother had once used a tour company that ran vans with that very sticker. Because Hung was both law enforcement and family of the victim, his commanding officer pulled him from the primary investigative roster to avoid conflicts of interest, but cleared him to support on technical work, camera pulls, cell site records, network contacts. A fast-track task force was stood up under the classification, missing person with criminal indicators. Procedure normally waits. This case didn't. There was a child involved, unexplained evidence, and a high-reliability witness timeline. Colleagues, reading the strain in Hung's face, kept their voices steady. We're on it. Stay focused. We'll follow every trace. Preliminary scene work. Forensics cordoned off the strip outside Hoai Ca's gate, the earthen berm down to the drainage ditch, and a service path toward the river about 60 meters away. Under oblique light, multiple droplets and smears dried to a dark brown fluorescent. Presumptive tests flagged them as blood. A half-meter scrap sapling club rough wood, dark residue caked at one end, lay buried in grass. Magnified inspection showed a snag of dark textile fibers caught in a splinter, possibly from clothing or a rag. In the packed soil of the lane, block tread impressions matched a small box truck or light cargo pickup. The exit track pointed toward the intercommune road and then to the river access. At the riverbank, a cluster of overlapping tire prints churned the same mud rut repeatedly, evidence the vehicle stopped or turned, not just passed through. A shallow, crescent drag mark ran from that spot toward the water, but depth was too light for a full-weight adult body, surface scoring only, no deep gouge. Investigators flagged the riverside signs as likely staging, an attempt to redirect attention rather than the primary assault site. Blood, soil, fiber, and club samples were sealed for lab work. Hair from the recovered hat, the one Du found, was collected and would be compared to hair from Hoai Ca's comb to firm up association. Witness timeline. Du estimated the white truck stopped sometime after 1900 hours, judging by the church bell, not a precise clock. Power had cut briefly around then. Neighbor 1 heard scraping, like someone dragging something heavy, but dismissed it as strays rummaging in trash. Neighbor 2 saw a flashlight arc across the gate, then darkness. Hung confirmed he'd spoken with Hoai Ca at 17:42. She said she was leaving late. After that, her phone went unreachable. Cell tower logs showed her handset pinged its home sector at 18:05, then silent. No subsequent handoffs to roadside towers along the highway. If abductors yanked the SIM or powered the phone down near the house, the record fits and reinforces a rapid snatch scenario close to home. Search expansion. The task force split 3 advance lines. 1. Extend the ground scene from the house toward the river and sweep 3 kilometers upstream and down by John boat. 2. Poll and review every community, shop, and fuel station camera within a 10-kilometer radius. Cross-filtering for white cargo vehicles bearing travel decals. 3. Probe upland routes passable by box truck, including the track to Keda Mountain, remote, poorly lit, and historically used to stage accidents. Forestry officers and local militia joined the mountain sweep. Hung formally attached to the digital forensic cell, but quietly urged the upland team not to skip Keda. He stopped short of naming why. That peeling tour decal, like the one from his mother's extended trip, sat like a stone in his gut, but he had no proof and no strength yet to speak the fear aloud. First lab nibble, red soil with quartz. When technicians scraped residue from the wood club and tire rut mud from the river path, they spotted fine white quartz flecks and a brick-red mineral stain, soil chemistry uncommon in the lowland neighborhood, but typical on Keda's slopes near an old quarry cut. If lab confirmation held, a theory sharpened. The perpetrators, or at least their gear, had been up Keda, then returned to seed misleading evidence by the river. Or they seized Hoai Ca at home, transported her upland, inflicted injury, and only later passed the river spur while exiting. No one wanted to voice the darkest branch of that tree. A body shoved off a rock face loses survivability by the hour. Still, ravines catch debris. A person can lodge in brush or a creek and live longer than you'd think. Hope clung to that narrow margin. Decision: climb. That afternoon, a lean advance unit, local scouts, forestry rangers, 2 blood-scent K9s, headed for the Keda trailhead. Hung wasn't officially manifest, but he rode along under cover of delivering evidence packets to the field lead. Du insisted on coming. He knew goat paths and herb gatherers' cuts that bypassed the main switchbacks. Evening fog rolled in thick. Wet iron scent rose from the red clay. Old tire ruts ghosted through the hard pan near an abandoned pull-off. And at the lip of the first steep pitch, searchers spotted shreds of dark cloth snagged on thorn, so close in tone to the work shirt Hoai Ca wore that morning it stopped them cold. The mountain was breathing, the light was dying, and for the first time since she vanished, the hunt had a direction. That night, after a brutal fall from the cliffside, Ly Hoai Ca's body came to rest at the edge of a narrow mountain stream. The icy water lapped at her cheek, slowing the drop in body temperature, but blood still oozed steadily from her head injury, seeping into the current. Just before dawn, a fisherman wading the stream in search of shellfish bent to lift a rock and spotted a dark mass tangled in tree roots. Thinking it was a trash bag, he pushed it aside, revealing strands of mud-matted hair. Alarmed, he checked for a pulse, faint but present. Without hesitation, he hoisted her onto his back and ran, crossing 2 steep ridges to reach his small wooden shack. He lived there with his younger sister in a patched-up hut on the stream slope. No vehicle. Spotty phone signal. The nearest clinic was over 2 hours away by foot. They laid Hoai Ca on a bamboo cot, boiled salted water to clean her wounds, used a flame-sterilized razor to trim blood-clotted hair, and dressed her torn forehead with strips of clean cloth. The sister, hands trembling, stitched the gash's edges using a needle and thread boiled minutes before. If the wound stayed open, she'd keep bleeding. With no medicine beyond crushed forest leaves, ginger liquor to warm her limbs, and turmeric paste mixed with boiled water to dab along the gauze, they did what they could. Hoai Ca drifted in and out of consciousness, feverish, then freezing. At times her pupils were uneven, a sign the fisherman vaguely remembered from a past accident case. Blunt trauma. Could mean a brain bleed. She had no ID, no valuables, likely stripped before being dumped. Only a torn scrap of fabric remained, half embroidered with the letter T. He wrapped it and tucked it into his pocket, hoping it might help identify her later. The first night was heavy. By the second, Hoai Ca seized lightly, then slipped into a deep coma. The siblings sat beside her, whispering. They needed a doctor. They scraped together money from dried fish sales, borrowed from neighbors, and begged someone to hike down to the commune to find a medic or summon a malaria nurse from the village. By late the next day, a doctor arrived. After a thorough check, his expression darkened. Probable cranial hemorrhage. High risk of cerebral edema. Pulse weak. Skin temperature unstable. She needs urgent hospital transfer. He administered a small dose of anti-edema medication, his last vial, secured her head as best he could, and left a list: stretcher, carriers, transportation to the district hospital, upfront fees. The siblings looked at each other. They had neither the means nor the manpower, and the patient was unconscious. Any hired help would require advance payment. It wasn't hesitation from indifference, they were simply too poor. Their roof still leaked when it rained. The sister gathered old silver bangles, intending to sell them at the morning market. If she dies here, the brother said, hoarsely, we'll never forgive ourselves. Through the haze of her fever, Hoai Ca muttered fragmented words. Tony, don't cry. Hung. Two unfamiliar names. The sister scribbled them in charcoal on the wall so she wouldn't forget. Tony/Hung whenever the fever surged. She changed the cloths, wiped away blood, cooled the wound with leaves. The room filled with the scent of rice wine, forest herbs, and the iron tang of blood thick in the lamplight gloom. The next morning, the doctor returned with a warning. Storms were moving in. The trail might become impassable within hours. If you don't move her before noon, he said, you may be stuck for days. It's dangerous. The siblings glanced at the barely breathing woman, then made their decision. She had to be moved. At that very hour, on the far side of Keda Mountain, the search party was combing red soil and quartz traces, closing in on scraps of dark cloth caught in underbrush. They had no idea the woman they sought clung to life in a wooden shack just beyond the next few forest ridges, saved by two strangers who refused to let her die. As for Hung's mother, the one who orchestrated it all, panic began to creep in the moment she learned the police had launched a formal investigation. At first, she clung to the belief that silence would keep her safe. After all, the plan had been meticulous. She hired outsiders, left no paper trail, and made sure nothing pointed back to her. But the rumors seeping out of headquarters, Hung's wary glances, and news that the investigation was narrowing in on the mountain region shattered her false sense of control. Losing her composure, she secretly reached out to the gang she had hired, demanding to know why the job wasn't fully finished. But that's when things began to shift. The criminals, never ones to rely on loyalty, turned the tables. They demanded more money, claiming the risk has gone up now that the cops are onto something. At first, she exploded with fury. But when they warned, no money, no promise to keep your name out of this, lady, she was forced to comply, gritting her teeth as she handed over more hush money. She warned them, no one can find out I was involved. If you leak this, it won't just be about money anymore. The gang didn't respond directly, but behind the scenes, they were already hedging their bets. A few had secretly recorded parts of the call, insurance, in case they needed to blackmail her again. Meanwhile, Hung pressed on, clinging to every fragile lead in his relentless search for Hoai Ca. He hadn't slept in days. He rewound camera footage frame by frame, analyzed tire tracks in the dirt, re-interviewed every witness. He hiked steep trails and waded through cold streams driven by love, by fear, by the sheer will to bring her home. Elsewhere, Hoai Ca still lay unconscious in that remote wooden hut. The swelling in her head was worsening, her breathing shallow and erratic. Her life hung in the balance. Yet the two poor siblings caring for her never gave up, washing her wounds, applying herbal remedies, keeping vigil with nothing but compassion and quiet faith. Back in town, little Tony woke crying every night, calling for a mother who never came. One night, he sobbed to Hung. She promised she'd come back. Is she back yet, Uncle Hung? Each time tore Hung's heart open. He held the boy close, hiding his despair behind a steady gaze. He couldn't afford to break. Will Hung and Hoai Ca survive this cruel trial? Will the truth about the one behind it all finally come to light? And will the flicker of hope be enough to guide them back to each other after so much pain, loss, and betrayal? Stay tuned for the next episode. Don't miss the heartbreak, the suspense, and the fierce fight for love that lies ahead.
Xin chào tất cả mọi người. bây giờ thì trời cũng khá là khuya rồi. Mình vừa mới hoàn thành xong video về câu chuyện của mẹ đơn thân Ly Hoai Ca và cảnh sát Hùng á mọi người. Trong tập hôm nay thì mẹ đơn thân Ly Hoai Ca và cảnh sát Hùng có một diễn biến khá là bất ngờ khi sự nguy hiểm của mẹ Ly Hoai Ca, mẹ đơn thân Ly Hoai Ca rơi vào nguy hiểm. Thì cảnh sát Hùng vẫn đang trong thời gian điều tra và tìm kiếm cô liệu rằng với tình yêu của họ thì có thể đưa họ về bên nhau không, tình yêu đó có thể chữa lành mọi sự không, và đặc biệt là sau này khi Ly Hoai Ca được tìm thấy thì liệu sự thật về mẹ Hùng có được phơi bày, và Hùng là người con trai, là người cảnh sát, khi điều tra ra sự thật về tội ác của mẹ mình thì sẽ hành xử như thế nào. Đúng là toàn là những câu hỏi rất là hóc búa, và chúng ta sẽ có lời giải đáp vào trong những các tập tiếp theo nha mọi người. Hãy đăng ký kênh, sau đó bật chuông thông báo lên để không bỏ lỡ bất kỳ video nào mọi người nhé. Và bye bye, hẹn gặp lại trong những video tiếp theo.